Hey everyone, how are you? Welcome to the episode 4 of Django Mastery series. And in this episode, we are going to see how to deal with interactive forms in a Django web page. Now, in the last episode, we have seen how to send dynamic values from views in Django and how to render those values in your Django template. For that, we have created a quote of the day web page. And in this episode, we are going to enhance our quote of the day application by allowing the users to submit their own inspirational quotes. We are going to integrate a form directly on the same page and we are going to instantly show their submitted code alongside the existing ones. So let me run the server and let me show what we already have. So for that, we need to go to a terminal. In the terminal, we need to point to our project folder. So my project folder is Django Mastery. In the Django Mastery folder, we have this manage.py file using which we are going to run our server. So right now my terminal is pointing to the Django Mastery folder. We also need to activate the virtual environment which we have created in the first episode of this series. To activate the virtual environment, I will say source venv bin activate, and then we need to run the command python manage.py run server. This is going to run our development server. Once the server is running, we can go back to a browser, and in the browser we can go to our website, which is 127.0.0.1:8000, and then we can say slash quotes. This is our quotes web page. In the quotes page, we can see quote of the day, all the quotes we have, and a message. You can find all quotes above. Now let's go back to the code editor and let's try to add a form in our web page, and then this form is going to allow our users to submit their own codes. So let's go back to the code editor and let's go to codes.html. In the codes.html, you can leave all the things we have right now and let's try to add a form. To add a form, we need to add a tag form and then add an attribute in the form method is equal to post. Now, as of now, what we have is we have a form which has a method as post. Why post? Because what we are trying to do is we are trying to allow our users to submit their own inspirational codes. It means our users are trying to create some data in our web page or in our website. For that, we have to have a form, and this form should have a method as post because post method allows to create a new data. Inside the form, let's add a label, and let's say a label is enter your quote. After this, let's add a input, and the input type will be text and the name will be equal to quote. Using this name, we are going to fetch the value in our Django view, and then let's keep this input as required. That's our input where a user will enter their own quote. Then let's add a button, and this button is having a type as submit. Using this button where a user can submit the quote, and let's add the text as submit. Now there is one more thing which we have to understand. That thing is CSRF token. But for now, let's try to see what we have in our web page. So for that, we need to go to the browser and try to refresh the page. Once you will refresh the page, you will have this form where you have a label, enter your code. Then you have an input where we are going to enter our code. And then we have a button using which we can submit the code. Now the thing is, right now the web page is not looking very interactive because we are not having any kind of styling using CSS or any kind of CSS framework, which is fine. Our goal right now is to understand about Django and not the front end. And that is why this page is right now not looking very beautiful or very interactive, which is again fine because our focus is completely to understand about Django. We can anytime add a styling and this page will look very beautiful and very interactive. So right now as a user, what you want to do is you want to say, okay, these are the quotes I have. Let me write one more quote which I want to add. And let's say the quote is do good and feel good. When you try to submit this quote, you will see an error which is CSRF verification failed. Now this is forbidden 403, status is 403. And when you see what is 403, 403 means the server understands your request but refuses to authorize it. It means that our Django server understands that there is a request which is incoming from our web page, but we will not allow this request to process further. Now, how can we resolve this error? So first of all, we will try to resolve the error and then we will see why was this error happening and why do we need this kind of security. So for that, let's go back to our code editor and let's try to resolve the error by adding a CSRF token in our form. Now, let me first add it. To add a CSRF token, what you need to do is you need to say curly brace, then a percentage symbol, then space CSRF underscore token, then a percentage symbol, then curly brace. So basically this is how you add a CSRF token in a form. Now what is this CSRF token? This is called cross-site request forgery. Now this is one of the type of attack which a hacker can do in our web page, and to protect from this kind of attack, Django has an inbuilt feature. When you go to your settings file in your my site folder, which is your project configuration folder, in your settings file, there is something called as middleware. These are all the middlewares which are already added in our web page, in our Django project or a Django website. And in this you will find a middleware which is CSRF view middleware. Now what are middleware? First let us try to understand it. So what happens is whenever a request is coming to our website from a client, the request will go to the server, right? Now before our server will try to process the request, there are some middlewares which can run or which can inject some code to provide some additional functionalities. So this particular middleware, CSRF view middleware, tries to add a code or a functionality which protects our server from any invalid request to be processed. And that is what we are doing right now. We are getting a request from our user or from our client that this is a form, they want to submit a data to our website, but we are not allowing it because this particular middleware is asking for a CSRF token before it allows our server to process the request further. So to send a CSRF token, we add this functionality or add this particular code in our form. So what happens is this is particularly replaced with an input. This will be replaced with an input and the type of input will be hidden. So this will not be visible on your web page, but this will create a CSRF token. And then when a user will send a request, the CSRF view middleware is going to authorize this request and then it will allow our server to process the request. This will protect our website from any kind of cross-site request forgery. So what happens is, let us say you have a form, right? Now this is a form. This form will make a post request to our web page, right? So it will make a post request to the server at which endpoint? The endpoint is 127.0.0.1:8000/quotes. So basically this is going to allow a post request to this particular endpoint. Now we don't want that anyone else or any kind of hacker website, let's say there is a hacker.com website and this website makes a post request to this particular page and this is going to create some data in our server, right? We are not going to allow any other website to make a request to our server. So what will happen? Our website will have a CSRF token, but any other website will not have this token. They can submit all the other inputs like whatever the code they want to send, or if there are more inputs, any hacker.com website can actually send some data to our server, but they cannot have the CSRF token. They will not have the CSRF token because only our website or only our server is going to create a valid CSRF token, which will then be authorized before the request actually is processed by the server. So let me show you what happens right now, and then we will come back to discuss more on what is the CSRF token. So we added this CSRF token thing in our form. And now once you go back to your browser, and now let's try to again go to the page, refresh it. And before you actually submit a code, inspect your page, and in the page you will find a form, right? This is the form you have. In the form, you see we have label, then the input, then the button, and before this we have this input which is type hidden, and that is why it is not visible in the UI. And the name is CSRF middleware token, and this is the value. Now this is the valid token which only our website can have. If some other hacker.com or any kind of evil website is trying to make a request to this form, or basically this particular endpoint with a post request, this can have other values, this can create some other values, the codes or other kind of things, but this cannot create this value, CSRF middleware token. So if they do not have this particular token, the request is not going to be processed by the server because the CSRF view middleware token is going to stop that and it will say 403 error. It means you are not authorized to make a request to our server. Although I understand your request, I will not authorize this request. So that is why we need to add this in our server or in our code, this particular code, so that we have a valid token and we can submit our form. Now again, let me just explain you this particular concept because this is very important to understand. Let us try to understand what is happening from start. There is a request coming from the user to our server, and this request is a post request made to our endpoint /quotes. Now this request is going to reach to the server, but the server is not going to process this request if it doesn't have a CSRF token, because if you are making a post request, a put request, a patch request, any kind of request which creates some data or updates some data, the CSRF view middleware will require a token, a valid token. This valid token should be present, and then only this request will be processed by the server. Any other website can have other input data, but it will not have a valid token because the token will be created by our own website or our own Django server. So once you have added this token, you can submit the code, right? Now, if you will go back to the browser again, and now if you will try to submit your code, you will see that nothing is happening. Let me show you how. If you don't write anything and you try to submit it, it will say, please fill in this field because this particular field is required. So you can submit this form once you have a value. So let's add the value as do good and feel good. Now you can submit the form, and what you will see right now is the same page. So what's happening here is, let's go back to the code editor and let's try to understand it. There is a request coming to our server, and you can see it in the logs. The request is coming as a post request to the /quotes endpoint. What happens is the particular request will reach to our website, and the urls.py file is going to understand the route, and through this particular route, this will try to understand which particular code or which particular view to run and return to the user or to the client. This particular path is going to understand the request, it is going to understand the slash part, and the remaining quotes part will be sent to the home.urls, because that's what we are doing right here. We are including all the URLs from home project, which is there in the urls.py file. This home is the application and not the project. This is an application in Django. So in the home application, you have this urls.py file. Go to the urls.py file and you have the path quotes, right? Now quotes is saying that views.quotes is going to process this post request, which is coming at /quotes. So if you go to the views.quotes endpoint, you will see that we have a list of quotes, then we are selecting a random quote, then we are creating a data which we are going to send to our template, and then we have this data quote, which is the random quote. Okay, we have commented it, let's uncomment it, and then we have all the quotes here, and then we are trying to render it. In this particular view, you will see that we are not checking anywhere that the kind of request which is coming is a get request, is a post request, is a put request, or what is the kind of request which is coming, what's the method of request. So once you go back to your browser again, and you will see that right now we are on this particular page or in this particular URL. When you will submit the form, it will call the same URL with a post request. So what will happen when you get a post request? this particular view is going to be executed. So right now everything is looking very similar to what happens when there is a get request to our page. Now let's try to process the post request. Now to access what kind of request is coming, is it a post request, is it a get request, we need to access it from this request, because the HTTP request which is coming to our web page is being handled by this value. So we can say if request dot method, this is how we are going to fetch the request method, and if this is equal to post, that is if this is a post request, then we are going to handle it. If this is a post request, we will receive an input which is a quote, right? The name of the input is quote. Now to access this value, how do we do it? Go to the views, and in this, if this is a post request, what you will do is you will say submitted underscore quote is equal to request dot post dot get quote. Now what is happening right now? This particular part is receiving the data which the user or the client is sending as a post request, and this is actually a dictionary. The values are sent as a key value format. In a key value format, the key is going to be the name of the input and the value is going to be the value which the user will send. So in the views.py file, if the method is post, you will create a variable submitted quote, and this will be equal to request.post. This is the dictionary which is going to receive the data, and then you are going to say get quote. Basically, you are trying to fetch the quote which the user has sent. And now if you have the quote, what to do? Now if you have the quote, what you want to do is you want to add this submitted quote to the quotes list. Let's try to add it to the quotes list. For that, we should have this quotes list before this particular part, right? So let's just cut this part and put it before the place where we are handling the type of request. Now we have a quotes list. Then we have a check that if this is a post request, then we are expecting that a quote will come. We are going to store it in the submitted quote. And since we want to access this submitted quote outside of this if condition scope, let's actually create this variable. Let's say submitted quote is equal to none. It is none as of now, but if the method is post, then we are going to say submitted quote is equal to request.post.get route, whatever request the user has sent. And then we can say quotes list dot append the submitted quote. That is, we are appending the submitted quote by the user in our quotes list. So a user is going to submit a quote, we are going to accept the quote here, and then we are going to add it to our quotes list. As of now, the quotes list is a list. So basically this is a kind of static value which is not going to stay for long. In the later videos, we are going to have these quotes in a database so that the value is persistent and it is not lost. But for now, our focus is completely to understand about how to handle an interactive form. Then what we can do is we can keep all the logic as same, but we can also add another value in the data which we are trying to send to our template. We are going to say data, then submitted quote is equal to submitted quote. So basically we are sending the quote, the random quote we have selected from the quotes list, then all the quotes, and then also one more value which we are trying to send is submitted underscore quote, and this will be equal to the submitted quote. Now before we go back to the browser to see what is happening, let us also go back to the template and let us try to add this submitted quote in our web page. In your template, what you can do is you can say, you can add an if condition. You can say if submitted underscore quote. That is, if we are receiving this value and if it is not none, then we are going to say inside a p tag, let us say thank you, your quote is. How to render the value? You can say double curly brace, then double curly brace close, and inside this it will be submitted underscore quote, and then you can just end the if condition. For that you can say end if. So right now what we are doing is we are saying if there is a submitted quote, then we are going to have this message, thank you, your quote is submitted quote end if. Now let's go back to the browser and let's try to see what we have done as of now. In the browser, try to go to your page. You will see that this is the random quote which got selected. These are all the quotes. Then there is a message, today's quote is whatever the random quote you have, and then enter your quote. But you cannot see any submitted quote message, because if you will go back to your code editor again, you will see that what you are trying to render in the template is you are saying that if there is a submitted quote, then we are going to display this value. If you will go back to your views.py, you will see that if there is a get request, because right now we made a get request, a normal get request. This was not a form submission or any kind of post request. So this particular part of the code is not going to get executed. So the submitted quote will be none, right? So this particular value is going to be none. And if this particular value is none, then in the template, this is going to be if none. If none is false, right? So if this is false, so if this is false, if the condition is false, this is not going to be visible. But let us say you try to submit a form. You have this form, right? Let's try to add this particular quote, do good and feel good. Try to submit it, and now you will see that you have this quote which got randomly selected from all the quotes. These are all the quotes. In all the quotes, you will see that you have this value, do good and feel good. Your submitted quote got added to the list, and then you have this message, today's quote is dream big, work hard, which is the random quote which got selected. And then there is a message, thank you, your quote is do good and feel good. So basically what happened is when we submitted the form with a particular quote, let me try to do it again. Let's say our quote is learning is the key. So learning is the key is our quote. And if we try to submit this, you will see that this got added here. And then your quote is learning is the key. This message is visible. Now the thing is, what's happening right now is when we are submitting a form, we are making a post request to the same endpoint, which is /quotes. So if this is a post request, then our post request call will get executed. And then once it gets executed, you will see that in the post request, we are saying that if the request method is post, then we are going to update the value of submitted code and then add it to the list. And then this value will not be none. This will have some value. So when you go back to your template, you will see that this condition is going to be true. And that is why this message is visible. Now this is how you handle the form. So now what we did as of now is we built and rendered a form in Django. That's what we did in our quotes.html file. This is how we did it. And then we saw that how to handle a post request and a form submission. So when you go back to your views.py, this is how we handle a post request. Then how to show the submitted data back to the user. So what we basically did is we created a data in our dictionary, submitted data, and that is equal to submitted code. So it is going to be none, but if the request coming is post, this will be updated. Next, we saw how to dynamically update the content in the same view. So in the same view, we were able to dynamically update our value based on the method, and then we were able to display the value in our template based on the condition that if there is a value, let's display it. If there is not a value, if it is none, so this particular code will not be executed. And we also saw how to secure our forms using CSRF tokens. So in the form, we have the CSRF token to make sure that the request is coming from our website and not from some other website. And that is why the name of CSRF or the full form of CSRF is cross-site request forgery. That is, from any cross-site, from any other website, any kind of invalid request which is coming from any kind of cross-site is not accepted. So this is going to secure our web page from any kind of hacking attack. And that is why in the episode number 1, I have told you that Django provides a lot of built-in things. And that is why it is one of the best framework to create a website. Now these are all the things which we have learned in this particular episode. And for that, what are the features we have built? We have seen request.method. This is how we can access the value of whatever method is coming as the request. This can be post, get, delete, put, patch. There are a lot of request methods, right? This will detect the form submission. And then to access or to capture the user input from the form, you can say request.post. This is the dictionary which is going to store the value. And then you can say .get using the key. The key name will be whatever the name is there for the input in your form. So this is the key name using which we are going to access the user input. The context dictionary, we have to pass the data to the template, which is called the context dictionary. So basically I'm talking about this data which we create in our view and pass it to our template. And then we saw about CSRF token as well. This is how we protect our form submission. And then in the template, we used this if condition to show a thank you message conditionally if we are receiving a particular code from the user. We also updated our codes list, right? We combined our static data with the submitted code, because in the views you can see we have all the codes and then we added a value in the codes. And our final output was a random code which appeared at the top, which we created in the episode 3. All the codes static plus submitted, which is as a list. Then a form which lets the user to submit their own code. And after the submission, the page is showing the code which the user has submitted with a thank you message. So if you go back to the browser again, you can see that this is what we have as of now. The code of the day application is getting better, right? Now, you might say that before this particular code, we also submitted other code which was do good and feel good. Why is this not visible in the list? And the reason is every request is a new request, right? And we are not storing our submitted code in any kind of persistent database. Right now we are storing it in a list. So when we are making a new request, it's a new request with a new data. The previous data is getting lost. And that is what we are going to handle in the next episode of this series. We are going to get started with databases and we are going to see how we can save a particular value in a database so that even if we refresh our page, even if we submit more codes, all the previous codes submitted by the users are saved in the database and we can access all the values. So our next episode is going to be about databases. We are going to get started with databases in Django. And for this episode, I think we are good. That's all we needed to understand. And I think you got the understanding of how to create a form and how to handle the form in your views.py file. That is how to handle the data and how to display the data, right? So if you understood everything, then make sure that you hit that like button. But if you have any kind of questions or feedbacks, then make sure that you put it in the comment box and I will surely reply to all the comments. And if you are liking this particular series, the Django Mastery series, then make sure that you subscribe to the channel as well, because this is just the 4th episode. We are going to have a lot of episodes in this particular series and you are going to love this. And this series is going to make you a master in Django because we are going to learn a lot of concept about Django and creating websites in general as well. For example, the CSRF token thing, this is not for Django only. This is a general attack which a hacker might do. Django provides the built-in functionality for that. There can be other frameworks which might not provide this functionality, but if you are creating a website, you should make sure that your server is safe from these kind of attacks. So I think we are on the right track. But again, guys, if you have any kind of questions, any kind of feedbacks, then make sure that you put it in the comment box. The code of this particular series, you can find it in the description as a GitHub link. So I think that's it for this video, guys. Thank you for watching this video. I will see you guys in the next video.